Hi, I'm Bakir Sanova and you're watching A News. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Donald Trump and Xi Jinping hold meeting in South Korea amid hopes for trade deal. Trump orders Pentagon to immediately start testing nuclear weapons after Russia says it tests another nuclear-capable drone. And Hurricane Melissa devastates Caribbean, leaving dozens dead and thousands homeless. U.S. President Donald Trump has met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea. The two leaders discussed trade as they work toward restoring a truce in the ongoing trade dispute.
U.S. President Donald Trump has met with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the APEC summit in South Korea on Thursday, as both leaders push for a return to the fragile trade war truce between the world's two largest economies. Their meeting follows talks in Malaysia between U.S. and Chinese trade negotiators who reached a framework agreement pending approval from Trump and Xi. Trump had signaled optimism ahead of the meeting, suggesting a trade deal could soon be signed.
It's a great honor to be with a friend of mine, really for a long time now, if you think about it. The very, very distinguished and respected president of China. And we will be having some discussions. I think we've already agreed to a lot of things, and we'll agree to some more right now. But President Xi is a great leader of a great country, and I think we're going to have a fantastic relationship for a long period of time. And it's an honor to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Trump has said he expects to reduce tariffs on Chinese goods in exchange for Beijing's cooperation in curbing exports of chemicals used to produce fentanyl. Xi expressed a willingness to keep working with Trump, saying it was natural for the world's two leading economies to experience occasional frictions.
Since your re-election, we have spoken on the phone 3 times, exchanged several letters and stayed in close contact. Under our joint guidance, China-US relations have remained stable on the whole. Given our different national conditions, we do not always see eye to eye with each other, and it is normal for the two leading economies of the world to have frictions now and then. And in the face of winds, waves and challenges, you and I at the helm of China-US relations should stay the right course and ensure the steady sailing forward of the giant ship of China-US relations.
The meeting in Busan, the first between the two leaders since Trump returned to office in January, concludes the president's trip across Asia.
Following President Trump's meeting with Xi Jinping, several steps were taken to improve trade relations between the United States and China. Our Laura Westbrook has more from Gyeongju.
U.S. President Donald Trump described the meeting as amazing and said a lot of decisions were made. On fentanyl, he said Chinese President Xi Jinping had agreed to take stronger action to stop the flow of precursor chemicals for making the drug fentanyl. In response, the United States would cut to 10% from 20% the fentanyl-related tariffs that the U.S. had imposed on China earlier this year. Now, Donald Trump also says the issue of rare earths had been settled with China, pausing its rare earth licensing regime for at least a year. China went into these talks by leveraging its chokehold on the supply of the critical minerals, announcing it was expanding its restrictions on the exports of rare earths. Now, China dominates the global supply of rare earths, which are used in everything from our smartphones to EVs to fighter jets and drones. The US president says they also discussed semiconductors and that NVIDIA would talk to China about exporting chips. But the discussions did not cover the most advanced chips. America has long blocked the sale of advanced semiconductors to China. The other takeaway is Chinese soybean purchases will start immediately, easing the pain on American farmers, who are a key support base of Donald Trump, and providing him with a political win. According to the state outlet Xinhua, President Xi says that China and the US should focus on the long-term benefits of cooperation, not getting caught in a vicious cycle of mutual retaliation. He added areas of cooperation lay in areas such as combating illegal immigration and artificial intelligence. Donald Trump is also set to go to China next year, and President Xi will make a reciprocal visit to the United States. What is clear is that tensions have been dialed down, but analysts say the long-term strategic competition remains. Laura Westbrook for A News in Gyeongju.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Thursday that he was unable to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during his visit to South Korea due to a packed schedule. Speaking to reporters on Air Force One while leaving South Korea, Trump said a meeting would have been disrespectful to talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trump, who met with Kim several times during his first term, added that he would be willing to return to the region for a meeting in the future. Trump also confirmed plans to return to Asia next April for another meeting with Xi Jinping. U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered the Pentagon to immediately begin testing nuclear weapons. The move follows Russia's announcement of a successful test of its Poseidon nuclear-capable super torpedo.
US President Donald Trump says he has ordered the Department of War to immediately begin testing nuclear weapons. Trump made the announcement on Thursday, citing what he called other countries' testing programs as the reason for his decision. The announcement comes just a day after Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Moscow had successfully tested its Poseidon nuclear-capable super torpedo. The underwater weapon is believed to be an autonomous nuclear-powered torpedo capable of generating massive radioactive ocean waves to make coastal areas uninhabitable.
For the first time, we succeeded not only in launching it from a submarine using its booster motor, but also in igniting the nuclear propulsion system, which the vehicle used for a certain period of time. This is a tremendous success.
After Putin's move, Trump additionally announced the United States will share closely held technology to allow South Korea to build a nuclear-powered submarine. The US has not conducted a live nuclear weapons test since 1992, when then-President George H.W. Bush imposed a unilateral testing moratorium. The moves by both Washington and Moscow signal a potential new phase in global nuclear competition.
The center-left D66 party is on track to become the largest party in the Dutch parliament, according to exit polls. The polls project D66 will win 27 seats in the 150-seat lower house, with Geert Wilders' far-right Freedom Party on 25 seats. The right-wing VVD is projected at 23 seats, while the Greens Labour Party could take 20. If confirmed, the result marks a significant setback for Wilders and opens the path for D66 leader Rob Jetten to form a coalition government. Jetten's popularity grew as he campaigned on housing, education and immigration, with the potential to become the Netherlands' youngest prime minister. Hurricane Melissa has left a trail of destruction across the Caribbean, from Haiti to Jamaica and Cuba, with dozens killed and thousands displaced. Now moving through the Bahamas, the storm continues to unleash heavy rain and flooding.
Hurricane Melissa continues its deadly path across the Caribbean, leaving behind catastrophic damage in Haiti, Jamaica and Cuba. Now downgraded to a Category 1 storm, Melissa is moving across the Bahamas, bringing torrential rain, powerful winds and dangerous storm surges. Authorities say dozens are dead and thousands displaced across the region. In Haiti, at least 25 people have been killed and 18 remain missing, according to the Civil Protection Agency. The southern coastal town of Les Cayes was among the worst hit, where floodwaters swept away homes and families. 10 of the victims were children.
The situation is not good for us. When it's raining, the kids can't sleep. We don't get anything to give them. During the night, we can't rest. We're standing up all the time. No sleep for adults, neither for the children.
In Jamaica, where Melissa made landfall Tuesday, as a record-breaking Category 5 hurricane with winds reaching 298 kilometers per hour, at least 8 people were killed. Neighborhoods are submerged and roads buried under mud and debris.
At one stage, I see the water at my waist, and about 10 minutes time, I see it around my neck here, and I make my escape.
More than 3/4 of Jamaica remains without electricity, and initial estimates suggest damages could exceed $22 billion. After pounding Jamaica, Melissa made landfall in Cuba on Wednesday as a Category 3 hurricane, bringing relentless rain and strong winds. In Santiago de Cuba, homes were destroyed and roads cut off by landslides. Cuban authorities said 735,000 people were evacuated before the storm hit, preventing an even greater loss of life. As Melissa moves north through the Bahamas, forecasters warn that life-threatening flooding and powerful winds will continue into Thursday. Across the Caribbean, emergency teams are racing to reach stranded communities as nations grapple with the full scale of Melissa's devastation.
Earth is approaching a critical climate threshold that world leaders once vowed to avoid. Scientists warn the planet is heating faster than ever, bringing record temperatures, deadly storms, and shrinking forests.
Earth is approaching a critical climate threshold that world leaders once vowed to avoid. For the first time, global warming is approaching 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, a key limit under the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. Governments pledge to keep warming well below 2 degrees Celsius, aiming to cap it at 1.5 degrees Celsius.
Over the decades, governments have been discussing and deciding, together with input from scientists, where the limit should be put in terms of global warming. In 2010, a limit was set to keep warming below 2 degrees. But already at that time, over 100 countries did not consider that an acceptable limit. For them, 2 degrees constitutes too high risks and too high impacts for their societies and their survival. So that is why, based on further scientific information, in 2015, the Paris Agreement set a long-term temperature goal of limiting warming well below 2 degrees and to pursue to limit it to 1.5 degrees.
In 2024, global temperatures hit record highs. The World Meteorological Organization confirmed the planet was 1.6 degrees Celsius hotter than the late 1800s, the hottest year ever recorded. Every year since 2015 ranks among the 10 warmest on record. The Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, which stabilizes Europe's climate, has weakened by 15% since 1950. Marine life is bleaching worldwide, from the Great Barrier Reef to Brazil. Warmer oceans fuel stronger storms. On land, rivers shrink, forests dry, and wildfires rage across the US, Canada, Southern Europe, and Russia's Far East.
The severity of these impacts and also the irreversibility of these impacts will drastically increase. Irreversibility means that even if we would be cooling down our planet in the future, some things are lost forever. And a key example here are the loss of species, the loss of ecosystems, and also, in some cases, the loss of life and entire cultures.
Crossing 1.5 degrees Celsius isn't just a number. It's a planetary alarm ringing through fire, flood, drought, and storm.
Welcome back to A News. The Netherlands is poised for a political shift as exit polls indicate that 28-year-old Rob Jetten, leader of the centrist D66 party, is on course to become the country's youngest ever prime minister. The results suggest a setback for far-right leader Geert Wilders, whose decision to collapse the previous government triggered the snap election. Yetten campaigned strongly on housing affordability, education reform, and a balanced immigration approach, all resonating with young voters and urban populations. If confirmed, he will now face the challenge of forming a coalition government in a deeply divided political landscape. To help us understand the political implications of this vote and what it means for the Netherlands and Europe more broadly, we're joined by Antonio Nogueira Leite, Chair Professor at Nova School of Business and Economics, speaking to us from Lisbon, Portugal. Professor Leite, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Professor Leite, let's start with the headline. How significant is Rob Jetten's projected victory in the context of Dutch politics?
Well, it's a little bit surprising in the sense that for quite some time the right-wing party of Mr. Wilders was leading, but the lead was collapsing over the last few days, and so it collapsed enough so that the party, the Liberal Party, the D66 of I beg your pardon, of Mr. Jester was allowed to win. So in that sense, it's an important win because it, in a way, stops the leading of some of the far-right parties within Europe. It's the first centrist result in some time, and it's quite a change from what we have had in the previous election. So Mr. Wilders, I would say, is the one that has lost the most. And the more moderate policies of the Liberals, of Mr. Jetten, seem to be clearly more in line with what used to be the more centrist approach in Dutch policies.
Professor Leite, what factors do you think most contributed to the decline in support for Geert Wilders and his Freedom Party?
I think that Mr. Wilders overstretched is pulling to the right in terms of bringing a very nationalistic anti-immigration approach. This Liberal Party had a more, I would say, more evidence-based approach to immigration, because they basically said that the Netherlands still need immigration. They should focus on more I would say more skilled immigration, also tackling the problems of abuse of the Dutch very generous benefit system for fake asylum seekers. And so in that sense, this and the stance on the housing problem, which is a major problem in Europe and notably in the Netherlands, with very concrete approaches. I think it catered to a younger population, and that wanted to stay a little bit away from the single theme speech of Mr. Wilders that is all concentrated into immigration and Islam. So they wanted real solutions for real problems, and I think that's what made the change from the previous one.
So Rob Jetten is only 28 years old. How important was generational politics in this election?
I think it was important because he clearly focused his message to young urban people, educated people, and they turned out voting for him. So it's not like he addressed a generation against the other, but he clearly catered at young professionals that, even though they have the skills, they have the studies, they have the professional capabilities, they still have trouble solving some of the very basic problems like housing. And he was much more concrete, not just rhetoric like Mr. Wilders. And so I think he catered at this younger 35 minus generation that in Netherlands and also in many other European countries wants real solutions for problems that are relative since the after 1945 era in which we have been living.
And D66 has generally positioned itself as pro-European. What does Yetten's rise mean for the Netherlands' role in the EU?
I think it's important because is the one some countries and the Commission and the Council have been pushing for some European-wide policies tackling some new issues that usually were addressed solely at the national level, and I think that a more pro-European Netherlands, and Netherlands is a country that, in spite of its size, has always had a very important influence in Brussels, and we have to realize that the Netherlands is a founding member of the EU. And so what I think is that will help the Commission and will help the Council and will help the EU as a whole, to solve some of the pending issues which are very relevant. The relationship with Russia is also helped with someone like the new winner than it was with European-wide programs in some key areas will also benefit from the contribution of Mr. Yetten. And so at a time when a lot of non-European parties are growing, like in Germany, like in France, in other countries in the EU, having a youth-centric and center-left party winning elections in an important country like the Netherlands, I think these are good news, and it's extra hope for people in Brussels in terms of somebody that is pro-European and not another one that comes up and really does not see himself or self in the European project. So I think globally, it's good news for Brussels. It's good news for the EU, and I'm not Dutch, but I think it's not bad news at all for the Netherlands, because Mr. Yetten is he able to find a right coalition, is actually bringing a lot of objective policies, not just rhetoric, not just immigration, to solve some of the huge problems that the young people in the Netherlands are suffering at this point.
Professor Late, how stable do you expect a potential Yetten-led coalition to be, given the ideological differences among possible partners?
Well, that's where we're going to see the political skills of Mr. Yetten. Denmark, the Netherlands is probably the country with the most dispersed political system. They have been managing to have these very large coalitions that usually would not stand in other countries. I think that they are in a position where they have very important problems they have to tackle. He has to find the minimum common ground so he can settle a coalition that works and that stays, because we have been having very many short-lived governments, and that's one of the reasons why some of the more structural problems of the Netherlands have not been correctly addressed. So I think this is now the real test for the political ability of Mr. Yetten, and also for the willingness to compromise of the parties around him, because it's not just political game. The Netherlands need at this juncture a fairly stable government going forward, because indeed a lot of problems need to be solved, and they haven't been clearly solved over the last few years. They have been aggravated. They are bigger now than they were before, and I think the Dutch people expect that political parties will come to terms to some sort of stable coalition.
So with Europe facing strategic pressures from the war in Ukraine and global economic uncertainties, how prepared is Yetten to navigate these international challenges?
Well, that's the €1,000,000 question, not to say the $1,000,000. But it's really a very important question. He certainly has in his party, and he will have in the government, if he manages to do so, people that will have to advise him. He has to be humble. His political skills, we have to be combined with knowledge that, some of it he will have, but at 28 years old, a lot of experience will have to come from his advisors and from his ability to process that information and those advices into good decisions. I don't see a problem with that. We have had in other countries very young prime ministers that performed performed relatively well. And so, the indications I have from people in the Netherlands is that there are some good expectations on Mr. Yetten. And like I said, he needs to be humble, smart, and really take find the knowledge that he hasn't acquired yet among the people that will work with him. And I think there is very experienced, very competent people that are willing to work with him. And so I don't see that as being a problem whatsoever. His age at this point. I think his age was important for him to understand what the problems were for the youth. And without his age, he probably would not have reverted the tendency towards the party of Mr. Wilders. And so I think he has to make what we can elder people think as a weakness. I hope he makes that an advantage and he takes the right advice and he moves forward correctly.
Professor Antonio Nogueira Leite, thank you very much for your insights and for being with us. We appreciate your time. Thanks.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to A News Now. Let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. The United States has reportedly asked Azerbaijan to join a proposed international peace mission in Gaza. A News has learned that while Baku has yet to make a final decision, its participation will depend on a UN Security Council mandate, granting full international legitimacy.
The United States has asked Azerbaijan to join a stabilization force in Gaza, a proposed international mission to secure the territory once the fighting stops and humanitarian access expands. According to information obtained by A News, Baku has not yet reached a final decision. Azerbaijan's position is firm. Any participation must rest on a United Nations Security Council resolution that grants international legitimacy and sets a clear mandate. This mission is not a classic UN peacekeeping operation. It is envisioned as a multinational stabilization force, similar to the peace-building framework seen after the Balkan conflicts, designed to secure key sites, ensure aid delivery, and prevent the return of armed confrontation while political structures take shape. The International Stabilization Force is a proposed US-backed multinational mission tasked with maintaining security, facilitating humanitarian aid, and overseeing reconstruction in Gaza once hostilities cease. The initiative seeks to prevent renewed violence, assist with rebuilding essential infrastructure, and support a transition towards stable governance. The United States is not expected to deploy its own troops. Instead, Washington aims to assemble a coalition of trusted regional and international partners, with Azerbaijan seen as a credible contributor capable of providing both diplomatic balance and experience in strategic peace efforts. Reports in Israeli media say the concept was discussed recently between US Vice President J.D. Vance and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as Washington and its partners explore options for a post-war security framework in Gaza. Azerbaijan's approach on Gaza has remained consistent. Baku coordinates with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the Arab League, and the wider Islamic world, stressing that Arab states must first establish a unified vision for Gaza's future before outside actors step in. Sources say Arab partners have taken note of Azerbaijan's balanced posture, rooted in long-standing ties with the Islamic world and cooperation with Palestine. Diplomacy now moves to New York, and as the region walks a fragile path towards stability, Azerbaijan sits at the crossroads of regional responsibility and emerging global expectation.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan attends the Paris Peace Forum on Thursday, where he made remarks on regional issues. Speaking at a panel titled Leadership at the Crossroads, Nikol Pashinyan said peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan is already a reality, calling it a historic change for the region. He expressed his confidence that the Armenian people support what they have achieved so far. Armenian Prime Minister touched Trump route, said project could open a new stage in international trade relations. Pashinyan also noted that establishing diplomatic relations and opening borders with Turkey is now only a matter of time, as there are no serious obstacles to the process. Georgia's President Mikhail Kavialashvili says his country remains committed to joining the European Union. However, the Georgian president insists the process must protect national values and interests. In an interview with Ajara television, Kavialashvili said that Georgia's path toward Europe began long ago and has been a historic aspiration of many generations. He noted that the country has faced numerous challenges over the centuries, but has always prioritized preserving its national identity. The Georgian government announced last November that it would not bring EU membership negotiations to the agenda until 2028. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is visiting Turkey today. Merz will meet with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Thursday at the presidential complex in Ankara to talk on Turkish-German relations and cooperation, Turkey's EU accession process, and regional security challenges. Kazakhstan has started preliminary work on its first nuclear power plant, a project seen as a major step toward energy independence. Our Fariza Kalimuzina has more.
Kazakhstan has begun preliminary work on its first nuclear power plant. The country's Atomic Energy Agency chairman Almasadam Satkaliyev announced. More than 70 boreholes have already been drilled with soil samples sent for testing. Preliminary seismic and mapping surveys have also been completed. Satkaliyev noted that according to International Atomic Energy Agency standards, the preliminary research will take about 18 months. The project is expected to require approximately $14 to $15 billion, and the Russian company plans to complete construction by 2035. The site for Kazakhstan's first nuclear power plant was officially approved in February this year in the Almaty region. Meanwhile, the country's authorities stated that the second and third plants will be built by China. In October of last year, a referendum was held in Kazakhstan with official results showing that more than 71% of citizens supported the construction of a nuclear power plant. Later, President Tokayev announced that the country would build not one, but 3 nuclear power plants, emphasizing that this is important for creating a new energy sector that will provide a solid foundation for economic development for decades to come. At the same time, experts note that the Chinese plants could be built faster and cheaper than Rosatom's project, and they express doubts about Russia's ability to fulfill long-term commitments amid economic pressure, sanctions, and the ongoing war. Fariza Kalimurtina, Almaty, A News.
Kazakhstan and the United States are looking to further deepen their economic partnership. Prime Minister Olzhas Bektenov has held talks with U.S. Special Envoy for South and Central Asia Sergio Gore and U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau. The sides focused on expanding trade and investment cooperation across several key sectors. The Prime Minister said that Kazakhstan continues to implement systemic measures to create favorable conditions for foreign businesses. During the meeting, the parties discussed prospects for expanding trade ties and strengthening investment cooperation. The discussions covered a broad range of sectors such as industry, digital development, energy, agriculture, transport and logistics. According to the National Bank of Kazakhstan, since 1993, the United States has invested a total of $61.2 billion in Kazakhstan. The volume of mutual trade has doubled in the past 5 years, reaching $4.2 billion. Kazakhstan and Afghanistan discussed establishing a Kazakhstan-Turkmenistan-Afghanistan-Pakistan transit corridor, including the Herat-Turgundi Railway, during the Kazakhstan-Afghanistan Business Forum in Simkent. Deputy Prime Minister Serik Zumangarin called Afghanistan a key trading partner, noting bilateral trade of $545.2 million last year. He highlighted significant increases this year in Kazakhstan's exports of wheat, sunflower oil, petroleum products, and commercial vehicles. The talks also covered cooperation in mining, automotive, and construction, with Kazakhstan ready to increase supplies of locomotives and commercial vehicles. The long-discussed strategic Zangezur corridor is becoming a focal point in the South Caucasus as regional economies look to boost trade and connectivity. New projections suggest the corridor could reshape integration from the Caspian to the Mediterranean.
Stretching across the South Caucasus, the Zangezur corridor is emerging as one of the most defining connectivity projects of the decade. More than a transport link, it represents a vision of renewed regional integration connecting Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan and Turkey through Armenia and forming a vital segment of the broader route linking the Caspian Basin with European markets. The corridor has the potential to become a turning point for the South Caucasus. Beyond simply facilitating trade, it can strengthen economic interdependence, improve regional connectivity, and support the development of more diversified and resilient economies. For Azerbaijan, it could expand non-oil exports and open faster access to European markets. For Armenia, it offers a rare opportunity to overcome isolation and move beyond re-export dependency. And for Georgia, a complementary role in connecting east and west through its Black Sea ports and multimodal logistics network. To understand the corridor's potential, current trade and transport data offer a useful baseline across the South Caucasus. The assessment is based on comparative trade data from 2019 to 2025, using a difference in differences model to estimate the corridor's expected impact once fully operational. Projections show that regional exports could rise by around 25%, with cumulative GDP gains across the South Caucasus reaching up to $2.5 billion by 2030. Contrary to some discussions around the topic, if Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia identify their strengths and maximize them, they will all benefit from this new transformation. The corridor's deeper value lies in its ability to reshape regional dynamics, aligning economies, encouraging cooperation, and promoting balanced competition across borders. It symbolizes not just a line on the map, but a framework for sustainable regional partnership. Ultimately, the Zangezur corridor is not only a transport project, it is a catalyst for reshaping regional dynamics in a way that could enable long-term stability and shared prosperity. A project born out of geography, now redefining the future of the South Caucasus.
Welcome back to A News. Now we are focusing on a significant development in diplomacy surrounding the Gaza conflict. The United States has approached Azerbaijan with a proposal to join a stabilization force in Gaza, a multinational mission envisioned to secure the territory once fighting ends and humanitarian access expands. But Baku has made its position clear. Any participation must be based on the United Nations Security Council resolution that provides legitimacy and a clear mandate. Diplomatic discussions now shifts to New York as regional and global actors evaluate possible post-war security arrangements. To help us understand the strategic, diplomatic, and regional implications of this proposal, we are joined by two experts. Ahmad Alili, Director of Caucasus Policy Analysis Center from Baku, and Maurice Hirsch, Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, who joins us from Jerusalem. Both of you, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Mr. Alili, let's start with you. What exactly is the proposed international stabilization force in Gaza, and how does it differ from a traditional UN peacekeeping mission?
Well, I believe, first of all, it's quite an important moment in U.S.-Azerbaijan relations. It means that U.S.-Azerbaijan relations, they developed to a certain degree that now Azerbaijan can be part of those missions that U.S. finds highly important. And I believe that this is one of those moments. But also, I would say that in this context, it's also going to be very important for the Israel-Azerbaijan relations, Turkey-Azerbaijan relations, Azerbaijan relations with the rest of the Middle Eastern nations. So that is why I believe it is quite an important moment in the history of Azerbaijan and its operations outside of the country. But at the same time, of course, like that, you rightly mentioned that this is going to be not a standard UN mission. So it means that there will be a couple different type of the management, and it's going to be responsible for protecting the routes of humanitarian aid, providing certain assistance on the ground. So I believe that in this case, Azerbaijan would love to be more, less politically involved, but more helpful on technical issues, because being part of the certain political developments in the region, it can be very costly in terms of reputation. Azerbaijan knows that, and most probably, so that is why Azerbaijan would love to be part of the technical, providing technical assistance or other technical operations on the ground.
So, Mr. Hirsch, now turn to you. Why is the United States considering Azerbaijan specifically as a contributor to this multinational force? What's your opinion?
Well, I think the push really at the moment is to ensure that we see the Gaza Strip developing out of the grip of the genocidal terrorists and towards development and towards progress. I think that this is something which is very unique as regards Gaza and requires really a concerted effort from all parts. I think specifically Azerbaijan has a lot to bring to the table, obviously. Not only would it improve the strategic relations with the US, also improvement in the already good and strategic relations with Israel, and also then bringing in this extra element of really providing part of the Arab countries' support for the development, the stabilization of Gaza, and really to see a situation where all the people of Gaza can really enjoy the progress rather than being dragged into cycles of violence. And I think from that point of view, Azerbaijan has a very, very substantial, potentially important role to play, bringing as a gap and really as a bridge between all of those different worlds.
So, Mr. Alili, Azerbaijan has emphasized the need for a UN Security Council mandate. Why is that requirement so important from Baku's perspective?
You know, it's very important because Azerbaijan understands the political nuances of the ongoing developments. Again, I told you like that Azerbaijan would love to be more involved in the technical side of the issues than the political decision-making part of the issues. Azerbaijan has great experience working with the international peacekeeping forces, but Azerbaijan used to be at the receiving end of these missions, like for example, Russian peacekeeping forces in Karabakh or other possible missions that international community was discussing for Karabakh in the auspices of the OSCE Minsk group when it was relevant. So in this context, Azerbaijan was always at the receiving end, and now we understand that when you are involved in such a sensitive political issue, you can have a huge political reputational win, but at the same time, it can turn into something disastrous. For example, I'm sure that the presence of the Russian peacekeeping forces in Karabakh significantly affected Azerbaijan-Russia relations in the later phases, or European Union monitoring mission in Armenia and how the relations with Azerbaijan. And I believe that it also affected Azerbaijan's relation with the European Union also. Now, Azerbaijan is becoming a country that can provide such a mission. And now Azerbaijan, with its vast experience dealing with this kind of operations, Azerbaijan understands that things can go to south very quickly. So then it can turn into something very disastrous for Azerbaijan. So in this context, having a UN Security Council backed mission on the ground, that is very important for Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan wants to be helpful. Azerbaijan wants to be, provide certain input to this process. Azerbaijan has excellent relations with Israel, Turkey, Gulf countries, United States. We are witnessing what kind of positive developments are taking place in this region. But if things go south, Azerbaijan should have certain backup to make sure that its reputation is not damaged. So that is why being present here with a clear mandate and with a clear rule. That is what Azerbaijan is requesting right now, and I believe that it is not something that it is something doable. I believe in this country because everybody is interested in a peace in Middle East, in Gaza. So that is why Azerbaijan's request I believe it should be respected, and there are quite many opportunities to fulfill this issue.
Mr. Hirsch, the United States is reportedly not planning to deploy its own troops. So what does that signal about Washington's strategy and limitations?
So I think the goal here is to try and put a force into Gaza that will be acceptable to the widest sections of the population, to ensure that we don't arise or give rise to any unnecessary antagonism. The goal of this project is to improve and really develop the Gaza Strip going forward. And once there is antagonism and potential hostility towards the force, I don't think that would necessarily provide the best answer. So when you have a force which is really made up of countries and participants who it is clear that they have the best of the Gaza Strip and the Gazan people at really at the forefront, I think that gives the force a much more balanced position and a much more greater opportunity that the force will actually succeed in its mission rather than allowing the terrorists to again seize control in the Gaza Strip.
So, Mr. Alili, how could Azerbaijan's involvement affect its diplomatic standing with Arab and Muslim majority states? And at the same time, how might Azerbaijan's participation be perceived in Israel?
Recently, we are seeing that Azerbaijan's contacts with the Gulf countries, with the Middle Eastern countries, are, at least a number of the visits from Gulf countries to Azerbaijan, from Azerbaijan to Gulf countries increased drastically. So I believe that in this context, it's likely to boost Baku's standing as a responsible actor, helping civilians and stabilization efforts of for the rest of the operation. And I believe that this kind of increased diplomatic presence, like the Azerbaijan's increased diplomatic presence in Middle East and the Middle Eastern countries, contact with Azerbaijan, they are going to Azerbaijan to be very helpful in so many, there are so many nuanced moments that these kind of connections are going to be very vital, I believe, for the peace in the region. At the same time, we believe that these kind of relations are going to help Azerbaijan and Israel to develop their relations even further. We are witnessing that in the recent years, Israel and Turkey, when they wanted to discuss certain sensitive issues, they would choose Azerbaijan as a country where they can visit, meet with each other and discuss this kind of sensitive issues. So I believe that in this context, it is very important that all of those factors can play a very important role, like for Azerbaijan, for the rest of the region, to positively influence this process.
So, Mr. Hirsch, looking ahead, what key developments or signals should we watch for in the coming weeks?
I think we have to see where how this force will be made up, exactly what mandate it will be given by the UN, possibly by the Security Council. One would hope that such a decision would really provide the basis for all of the different countries to join, give them the authority to move forward. We will hopefully see that that type of a decision will include the parameters and really clear instructions as to what will be done with the Gaza Strip. As Israel has said, we have no particular interest in the Gaza Strip whatsoever. And really moving forward, what we want to see is a secure area living in prosperity that no longer poses any threat to Israel and to Israel's security. And I think that going forward to see how exactly this force will be made up will then really dictate whether the force will succeed in combating the extremism, combating the terrorism, or whether it's going to be, unfortunately, made up of countries who are not helpful for that mission. From that point of view, Azerbaijan is a clear positive influence, whereas other forces would possibly be less effective and not necessarily as positive for the whole mission. And so obviously having countries that have the best interests of the region, countries that are respected, that are trusted by the different actors, is something which I think we'll see developing in the coming weeks and then moving forward with the mission.
Maurice Hirsch and Ahmad Ali, thank you very much for talking to A News. We greatly appreciate your time and perspective. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fab.
You're up to date with world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.